Making an NFL roster or even a practice squad would be an insane accomplishment for anybody, but when your own brother turns into an NFL star, your accomplishments seem to dull in comparison to theirs. While it's extremely rare, there have been several pairs of brothers that worked their way to the NFL over the years, and many of these brothers are well known, like the Mannings, Kelces, Barbers, Watts, and Matthews, to name a few, but the reason we know these brothers is because both of them had Pro Bowl caliber careers. But there are plenty of other sibling duos that made their way to the NFL, just with varying levels of success. So while you may know all about the brother who was a superstar, there's a good chance you never even knew they had a brother in the league, simply because that brother was more of a role player or even a practice squad guy. Well, this is who I'll be discussing today, so get set because this is a list of NFL superstars that you didn't know had brothers that played in the league. Walter Payton is one of the most recognizable players in NFL history. During his 13-year career with the Bears, he was a 9-time Pro Bowler, League MVP, Super Bowl champion, and he retired as the NFL's all-time leading rusher. But did you know that Walter actually had an older brother who also played in the NFL? Eddie Payton played 5 seasons in the league, primarily as a return specialist, and over his 5 years, Eddie spent time on 4 different teams: the Browns, Lions, Chiefs, and Vikings. He totaled over 5,000 return yards with 1 punt return touchdown and 2 kick return touchdowns. Eddie may not have retired as a Hall of Famer like his younger brother, but he still had all the talent to play at the highest level. Larry Fitzgerald is a certified future Hall of Famer. He was a first-round draft pick who made 11 Pro Bowls during his dominant 17-year pro career. He was rightfully named to the 2010s All-Decade team as well as the NFL's 100th anniversary team. But while everyone knows all about Larry, most people don't know that his younger brother, Marcus, also had a stint in the NFL. Marcus was a solid receiver in college, playing at Marshall University, where he even played in the East All-Star game in Hawaii as a senior. But unfortunately, he tore his hamstring at Marshall's Pro Day and ultimately went undrafted. He did get a tryout with his hometown Minnesota Vikings in 2009, though, but he was eventually released before spending some time playing in the UFL with the California Redwoods. Carson Palmer was one of the most talented quarterbacks in the league while he was at the helm of the Cincinnati Bengals during the 2000s, and he then had a career resurgence with the Cardinals in the 2010s. But while Carson was a franchise QB, his younger brother, Jordan, was grinding his way onto an NFL roster. Jordan was drafted to the Redskins in the 6th round of the 2007 draft, and despite playing well, he was let go at the end of the preseason. He then briefly joined the Arizona Rattlers of the Arena League before making his way back to the NFL, and funny enough, he did so by joining the Bengals as Carson's backup. This made the Palmers the first brothers ever to share the QB position on the same team at the same time. Jordan then bounced around the league with the Jaguars, Bears, Bills, and Titans, playing a backup role at each stop, but he was able to stay on an active roster until 2014. Ray Lewis may be the most dominant middle linebacker in league history, making 13 Pro Bowls, winning 2 Super Bowls, and twice being named the NFL's Defensive Player of the Year. But many people forget that Ray's younger brother, Keon Lattimore, actually had a brief stint in the NFL as a running back. Some may remember Lattimore being featured on Hard Knocks while he was in training camp with the Dallas Cowboys in 2008. But after getting released from the Cowboys, Keon then spent the 2008 season on the Jaguars practice squad, then some time on the 49ers practice squad in 2009 after another stint with the Cowboys. He then joined an indoor football league where he actually switched to Ray's position of linebacker, where he played until the league folded. In his prime, Cam Newton was one of the best players in the league during the 2010s. He was drafted first overall in 2011 by the Panthers, where he was dominant, winning an MVP, leading the Panthers to a Super Bowl appearance, and making 3 Pro Bowls before spending the 2020 season with the Patriots, but ultimately ending his career back in Carolina. But before Cam ever came to the NFL, his older brother Cecil entered the league as an undrafted free agent out of Tennessee State University in 2009. Unlike Cam, Cecil was an offensive lineman and was on the Jaguars roster as a center for 2 years before spending 2 more years bouncing around the league on practice squads with the Saints, Packers, and Ravens. Champ Bailey is one of the best cover corners in league history, earning a ridiculous 12 Pro Bowl nods over his 15-year career playing with the Redskins and Broncos, and he even landed himself a place in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And crazy enough, he spent one of these seasons sharing the field with a brother. Champ's younger brother, Boss Bailey, also made it to the NFL, being drafted in the 2nd round by the Lions in 2003. Boss spent 5 seasons in Detroit before he signed with the Broncos in 2008, which meant that Boss and Champ shared the field that season, with Boss at linebacker and Champ at corner. Boss didn't have the same type of career as Champ, but he still managed to play 6 seasons in the pros. Sammy Watkins may not have lived up to the hype he garnered during his explosive college career, only recording 1 season with over 1,000 yards receiving in his 9-year NFL career. He spent time with the Bills, Rams, Chiefs, Packers, and Ravens, and he did manage to earn a Super Bowl ring with Kansas City in 2019. Even though he wasn't as successful statistically in the NFL as he was in college, he's definitely a well-known name around the league. But who isn't so well known is Sammy's older brother, Jalen. Despite being the older brother, Jalen was actually drafted the same year as Sammy in 2014, but he was taken in the 4th round. And also, unlike his younger brother, Jalen played on the defensive side of the ball. He was originally drafted by the Eagles, but after getting cut, he moved on to Buffalo to team up with his brother, but unfortunately, the Bills let him go as well. Like Sammy, Jalen also earned a Super Bowl ring, doing so back with the Philadelphia Eagles in 2017 before bouncing around the league as a practice squad player. Randall Cunningham is an NFL icon, most remembered for his elusive and explosive playstyle during his time with the Eagles, but he also had a great career resurgence in Minnesota with the Vikings where he showcased his elite passing ability. But 12 years before Randall made his NFL debut, his older brother Sam made his debut for the New England Patriots. Sam Bam Cunningham was an All-American running back out of USC who even earned a national championship ring his senior year, and he was drafted in the 1st round of the 1973 NFL Draft. Sam played his entire 10-year career with the Patriots and even made a Pro Bowl in 1978. And while Sam isn't as widely remembered as Randall, I'll bet there are some loyal fans in New England that still remember him powering his way into the end zone. LeSean McCoy was one of the most talented and most popular players in the league during his career, making 6 Pro Bowls while starting for the Eagles and then Bills before he earned Super Bowl rings with the Chiefs and Buccaneers. Shady left a lasting legacy in the league, but what you don't hear much about is LeSean's older brother, LaRon. LaRon actually earned a place in the NFL first, though he didn't have as much success as his younger brother. He was drafted by the Cardinals in 2005 in the 7th round as a receiver out of Division II Indiana University of Pennsylvania. LaRon spent 2 years with Arizona before playing 1 year with the 49ers in 2007, and he had a stint with the Texans in 2008, but he was cut in preseason. Aaron Rodgers, aka the Enigma, is a 4-time MVP and Super Bowl champion quarterback, but he's definitely had some controversial moments over the years off the field. Part of that was him falling out with his family, and because of this, it's not too well known that his younger brother Jordan had a stint as an NFL quarterback himself. Jordan took a similar route as Aaron for college, first starting out at Butte Community College before transferring to Vanderbilt. He went undrafted in 2013, but he signed with the Jaguars practice squad before moving on to Tampa Bay. He then had a brief stop in Miami with the Dolphins before his playing days came to an end. Jordan never made an active roster, but he still managed to spend 2 years as a member of the NFL. Jon Hannah is one of the greatest offensive linemen in the history of the NFL. He spent his entire 13-year career with the Patriots, playing from 1973 through 1985. Hannah was consistently one of, if not the best guard in the league, earning 9 Pro Bowl nods with 10 All-Pro selections, which earned him a place on both the 1970s and 80s All-Decade teams, as well as the NFL's 100th anniversary team. To no surprise, he was inducted to the Pro Football Hall of Fame and even had his number 73 jersey retired by the Patriots. But he wasn't the only Hannah to have found success in the NFL, as his younger brother, Charlie, also earned his way into the pros. Charlie also played guard, but he did actually spend a little bit of time playing D-end. He put together a 12-year career playing with the Buccaneers from 1977 to 1982 before moving on to the Raiders, where he stayed through 1988. Charlie didn't reach the same legendary status as John, but he was able to accomplish something that his Hall of Fame brother couldn't by earning a Super Bowl ring with the Raiders in Super Bowl 18. Randy Moss, aka The Freak, is probably one of the most popular names in the history of the NFL, even earning his own tagline for highlights that you still hear today with "He got mossed." But did you know that he actually had a brother that played in the NFL before Randy burst onto the scene? 1 year before Randy was drafted in the 1st round by the Vikings, his older brother Eric actually signed with Minnesota as an undrafted free agent in 1997 as an offensive lineman. So when Randy was drafted the next year in 1998, he and Eric became teammates. Eric definitely didn't see the same success as his younger brother, but he did manage to stay on the Vikings roster for the better part of 3 years before moving on to NFL Europe and a brief stint with the Raiders in 1999. Michael Vick was a human cheat code during his prime years with the Falcons in the early 2000s, and he proved that he had the capability to play the role of a pocket passer during his NFL return when he joined the Eagles. Vick's younger brother Marcus had a lot of the same explosive talent as Mike, and he even chose to attend his brother's alma mater, Virginia Tech. But after a few poor decisions that resulted in a criminal record, Marcus was dismissed from school, and obviously this left a bad reputation in the eyes of pro scouts. As a result, Marcus went undrafted in 2006, but he did get a chance with the Miami Dolphins, and he ended up signing to the practice squad as a quarterback/wide receiver and kick returner. He saw action in one game as a receiver, but didn't record any stats, and after the year, the Dolphins chose not to re-sign him, and he never received another contract offer. Doug Flutie played in 3 different pro football leagues, the USFL, CFL, and obviously the NFL. And despite being an undersized quarterback, Flutie was a 3-time Grey Cup champion and 6-time MVP in Canada, and he was even a Pro Bowl player while in the NFL. Doug is remembered as a fierce competitor and as the last player in league history to successfully complete a drop kick. But not many people remember that Doug's younger brother, Darren, was an NFL player himself. Darren played wide receiver at Doug's alma mater, Boston College, before moving on to the NFL where he spent 1 year with the Chargers and another with the Cardinals. After 2 seasons in the NFL, Doug convinced Darren to join him in the CFL, and the brothers became teammates playing for the BC Lions for 2 years. Darren ended up playing 12 years in Canada and even won 2 Grey Cups himself, and like his brother Doug, he was also inducted to the CFL Hall of Fame. Dale Carter was a premier corner throughout the 90s. He was a first-round draft pick in 1992 and went on to win Defensive Rookie of the Year and earned 4 consecutive Pro Bowl appearances from 1994 through 1997. But Dale actually had an older brother that came into the league 1 year before him, this being Jake Reed. Reed was a solid player as well, but he started on the other side of the ball playing wide receiver for the Vikings. And partially because he played alongside 2 of the greatest receivers ever in Chris Carter and Randy Moss, he never earned a Pro Bowl spot. But he was a great receiver in his prime, putting up 4 consecutive seasons with over 1,000 yards receiving. The main reason people may not have known Carter and Reed were brothers is simply because they don't share the same last name, but they certainly shared some great genetics. Crazy enough, they even shared the same team in 2001 when Carter joined Reed on the Vikings, and again in 2002 when they both signed with the Saints. Terry Bradshaw is not only a Hall of Fame, Super Bowl winning quarterback, but he's also a pretty big TV personality. So even though he spent his prime playing back in the 70s and 80s, odds are you know who he is. Terry was the first overall draft pick in 1970, and he paved a Hall of Fame career with the Pittsburgh Steelers, racking up 4 Super Bowl rings, a league MVP award, and multiple Pro Bowls. What most people don't remember is that Terry's younger brother, Craig, was an NFL quarterback himself. However, his career wasn't quite as illustrious as his older brother. Craig was a 7th-round draft pick out of Utah State, being selected by the Houston Oilers in 1980, where he spent 1 season and appeared in 2 games. Craig was released ahead of the 1981 season and wasn't on a roster, but he was eventually picked up by the Saints where he backed up 2 NFL greats, Archie Manning and Ken Stabler. But after 2 seasons in New Orleans, Craig's pro career would come to an end. Tory Hull is one of the best players not yet in the Hall of Fame, but this 7-time Pro Bowler and Super Bowl champion wide receiver wasn't the only Holt sibling to make it to the pinnacle of pro football. His younger brother, Terrence, also made his way to the league. Unlike Tory, Terrence played on the defensive side of the ball as a safety. He was taken in the 5th round by the Lions in 2005 and spent 4 years there before bouncing around the league for the next 2 seasons, spending time with the Cardinals, Panthers, Bears, and Saints. He didn't have a superstar-level career like his older brother, but he still put together a solid 6-year career. Jon Randall came into the league as an undersized, undrafted free agent out of an NAIA school, but he managed to blaze a 14-year career featuring 7 Pro Bowls and spots on the 1990s All-Decade team and the NFL's 100th anniversary team. Today, he's remembered as one of the most aggressive players in league history, and he earned himself a place in the Hall of Fame. But back when Jon was entering his freshman year of high school, his older brother, Irvin, entered the NFL as a 3rd-round draft pick to the Buccaneers where he played linebacker. Irvin had a longer career than most, playing just about 9 full seasons as a pro, spending time with the Buccaneers, Chiefs, and a preseason with the Packers. He may not have found the same success as Jon, but he certainly paved the way for his younger brother, and I'm sure he helped Jon become the player he was. It's no wonder they call Philadelphia the city of brotherly love, because to end this list is the 5th Eagles player mentioned, this being Brian Westbrook. Westbrook is one of the greatest Philadelphia Eagles of all time, earning his stripes as an all-around weapon, being a strong returner but specializing as a great rushing threat with exceptional receiving abilities, resembling Marshall Faulk. This two-time Pro Bowler was well known around the league during his prime years, but Brian's brother, Byron, flew under the radar. Both Westbrook brothers had to grind their ways into the NFL. While Brian was a long shot for the league, coming in as a third-round draft pick out of Division I AA Villanova, Byron had to come even further, making his way to the pros after a stellar career at Division III Salisbury University before going undrafted in 2007, but signing with the Redskins as a corner. Byron was unable to make the final roster in 2007 and 2008, instead signing to the practice squad. But he eventually earned his place on the team for 3 seasons from 2009 through 2011, appearing in 46 games with 1 start.
Which NFL superstar were you most surprised to learn had a brother that played in the league? Let me know in the comments, and if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button so you know when I make my next upload. But until next time, get set because I'll have another one coming soon.